Alright, so, heyo, my fellow Rumble Maniacs. It's Mr. Rumble Roses here, and, welcome to another little random installment of, well, Rumble Ransom Rambles, I guess. So today, I want to do a bit of a thing involving Elden Ring Nightreign, because there's been some things on my mind about it that I wanted to kind of share, and I guess you could say this is going to be like my personal hot takes involving the game. So a lot of I know a lot of people are gonna have like their own opinions and all that stuff about this, and you know that's common. That's a common thing and all that. And it's like an old saying goes, opinions are like assholes. Everyone's got one and all that. But I want to kind of share some things that have been on my mind for quite a bit now. Like I said, you can kind of consider this like hot takes if you want. So the first thing that comes to my mind for I guess like my first little hot take is crossplay should have been a thing from the very start. Now, when it comes to this game, it's pretty much known to be like a multiplayer base. It's going to be like a multiplayer cooperative game. You know, you often would play online and team up, queue up with other people and all that stuff. And I feel like FromSoft actually kind of took a massive L when it came to that, to not have crossplay for at least this game. Especially because, like I said, it's basically a multiplayer type game, and I could live with the fact that, like, oh, the main Elden Ring didn't have it, and probably was never gonna have it, even though I feel like it should as well. But like that's something I can kind of like be like, okay, I don't really mind that. But in my opinion, though, I do feel like Nightreign should have had the ability to, do crossplay. I mean, hell, if Doom can do it with all the if like Doom, Heretic, and Hexen, all that stuff, can do it with with their things, then surely fucking, um, Nightreign could have done the same thing. I mean, hell, you got something like Dead by Daylight where you can be able to have like, console, people and PC people, playing the same game together, and going from there. Hell, I wouldn't even mind if they somehow had to like rework the system or whatever the thing is, where it's like, oh, instead of having to, invite, with like certain people, on whatever platform that you're on, you can go just have like a friends list type thing. Like, hey, I see so and so's in game, I'm gonna send them an invite, see if they want to join, my expeditions in the game. I feel like they could do it, despite the fact that, they won't for some fucking reason. But I think they honestly should. It would be a massive little success in my opinion. And I feel like it could bring even maybe more people together that you wouldn't be able to normally do. Next, and this is something I actually kind of talked about recently on my stream. I wanted to talk about the Knights Cavalry. So, Knights Cavalry, even though even though I might not get everything correct as far as like when they debuted, but basically like when it comes to the Knights Cavalry, there's always been one thing that bothers me about them, and it goes from not only base Elden Ring but also here on Nightreign as well. In my opinion, I feel like when you get a Knights Cavalry off of their horse, they should not be allowed to ever get back on that horse. Now, you can call me crazy all you want for what I'm about to say, but I feel like it's an exploit. Now, Yeah, but yeah, I feel like it's definitely like an exploit type of thing. You know, it's like they're exploiting the ability for something that they should not be able to do. Now, granted, like I have played Elden Ring. I played the bejesus out of that game. Hell, I even fucking platinumed it, just like I have Nightreign. And I know that's what they do. Um, and yes, I know that they build to respawn the horses in main Elden Ring. But in my opinion, they shouldn't have. They shouldn't be able to do that in regular Elden Ring, and they should not be able to do it in Nightreign. I say especially Nightreign because of how they could be because of how they could be um, night bosses. I'm not saying Night Lord bosses, but night bosses. You know, basically, like I feel like it's an exploit that should not be a thing. You know, like it's just so stupid where it's like they're off the horse like temporarily, and they can somehow have the ability to get back on their horse, and they just run around like cowards like they are, because let's be honest, fucking Knights Cavalry, is it are cowards. Um, but all they do is just go around, just run around, like trying to, like make you chase after them, and when they even do something, like either it's like they try to do like a random ass little drive by, or B, they use their fucking horse to kind of like bump into you or something like that. When again, they shouldn't be, and like, but like, but I like, I'm sort of torn by that, but it's like, I feel like it's so stupid of how the Knights Cavalry are. Like they should never be allowed to be on horses, period. But my one grief is that once they get knocked off their horses, they should never be allowed to call them back. It's so stupid that they can when they shouldn't be. I know I'm kind of like I know I'm probably like repeating words and stuff like that, but it's just how it is. This is coming from the heart, not from a fucking script, or whatever. Um, like once they're down, there should be stay down. I almost kind of would say the same thing for Royal Cavalrymen, but most of the time I've been able to. Most of the time I've been able when I've dealt with Royal Cavalrymen, when you deal with like two of them and Tree Sentinel, they don't really do that stuff as much as Knights Cavalry do. But take it as it is. Next, the next thing I wanted to talk about was the Everdark bosses. Now, in my opinion, and I will die on the hill saying it, that they all need a nerf. They all need a nerf because they've been done so stupidly, and there's like certain things about them that honestly in my opinion is so brain dead and so stupid that it's it's just dumb. So I'm gonna try and name some examples off the top of my head. So when it comes to Everdark Augur, um, its phase 2 has way too much health. Like, it should not have that much health, period. You know? And, like, no matter how you, no matter, like, no matter how you play that boss, it has got way too much health than it should have. You know? That's one thing that needs a nerf, that's one of the things that needs a nerf from it. You know? Um, when it comes to Everdark, when it comes to the Everdark version of Dark Drift Knight, or as I like to call him, the Everdark Drift Knight, because name kind of all that. There are some things that I feel like that should be nerfed with that boss. Like for example, the little like arrow nuke thing that it likes to do when it goes up in the air. Like it should not have that fucking big of a blast radius, because 9 times out of 10, I cannot be able to fucking get out of that, no matter how far I run, and no matter what I use, to try and, like, escape. I'm so sick and tired of dying. I'm so sick and tired of dying and going down because like it's like it's basically unavoidable. Another thing about that boss is um, that the whole thing with this main weapon turning into like golden twin blades and everything. It needs a cooldown. Like it should not be able to it should not be able to really use it that much, if at all, in my opinion. But it should not be able to use it to where it's like it just constantly just just sweeps all over the place and everything because it goes by too fast. There's very little counterplay to it and everything, and and 9 times out of 10, a lot of people go down to it. Like I can tell maybe like a few sweeps, and that should be it. Another thing that comes to my mind is winding graces. So when it comes to winding graces, you normally can be able to get them very rarely, and they're known to be able to help you out. Like if say you're in a boss, no matter what type of boss. Like well, I guess I'm not. I guess like certain bosses, like in the day one or day two boss, or maybe like the day three boss slash Night Lord. But in my opinion, they should make those a little bit more common. And the one thing that kind of in the one instance I say they should make it more common is they should make it more common in single player and duos. Now, I want to say duos for the most part because I feel like that's one of the things that FromSoft never for some reason never decided to patch in or put in or whatever. Like I feel like the spawn chances of getting that from like a boss whenever you defeat it, no matter what kind, should always be able to give you like a higher chance of winning graces. You know, and that's how it should be in my opinion. Um, Another thing, and I guess the last thing that comes to my mind for the time being is whenever you face an Everdark Sovereign boss, and everything, I feel like I feel like it's not worth the grind, in my opinion. So so here's the thing. From what I have gathered and experienced and all that, if you beat if you beat an Everdark boss for the first time, you get about I don't know, like 15 or so sovereign sigils. See how since they have like a new currency type stuff for that, right? Well, in my opinion, I think that I think they should honestly rework that. So, in my opinion, I think the way that the sigil currency stuff should work is if you beat a boss, for the first time, you should get at least 20 to 25 sigil currency. Okay? And if you were to say, go up against the Everrock Sovereign boss that you've already beat, then you can be able to lower that down at most to 10. But let's say that you're trying to go to an Everdark boss, but you don't get to the final day, so therefore you don't get to get more sigil currency, right? Well, in my opinion, um, if you die before you get to night three at most, then well, actually no. In my opinion, at most, like if you die and everything, you should be able to get at least a little bit of a reward. Because I feel like that would make the grind for these bosses, more worthwhile. Especially like say, if people are trying to play catch up in order to, get the stuff on the collector signboard that you can be able to get the special stuff from. Like that would, because that would make it, but that would be more tolerable and honestly, in my opinion, more fair. And and I actually thought of one more thing that I wanted to talk about, and that was and that's involving a particular astral war called Storm Ruler. So when it comes to Storm Ruler, it technically got introduced from what I've heard in Demon Souls, like the original Demon Souls. Now I never played the original Demon Souls, but I know a friend who has, and that's where I've heard that from. But for me, the first time I ever got to experience Storm Ruler was in Dark Souls 3 against Yorm the Giant. So, there's that, right? Well, in Elden Ring, mostly Elden Ring Nightreign, they introduced that as a little bit of a gimmick slash mechanic, if you will, for the Everdark version of Augur, especially in the Phase 2. Now, there are some things that I like about this version of Storm Ruler from one, being able to restore your FP so that we can be able to use things that, would that require FP, obviously. Like, for example, having like the ability of some sort of heal. Like if you had like a healing ability and you had, Storm Ruler equipped and all that, you can be able to, charge up your FP as much as you can slash need in order to, in order to have a heal ready, so that way you don't have to always worry about your flash or, you know, only use that, like say if you run out of flash, right? Um, but I bring this up because I recently saw that when Elden Ring Nightreign did an update slash patch thing or whatever, they had apparently buffed Stormruler a little bit. And I was talking to my friend Onyx over on Discord and everything, and he was like telling me about like how Stormruler got buffed. And in my opinion, like on the one hand, I thought like, oh, that's kind of cool, that Stormruler got a bit of a buff. But on the other hand, they missed an opportunity for something. And that's something they should have honestly done in the first place. In my opinion, to truly give Stormruler a good buff, it needs to be done to where it does not have a fucking range limit. Now you might be saying to yourself, oh, it doesn't have, there is no range limit, but yes, it does. It does have a range limit. Like, you know, you can only go so far and do so much, with Stormruler. And in my opinion, if you want to truly make it a good, if you want to honestly, really truly buff that thing, then you should not have a fucking range limit. It should be like a fucking BFG ball or something like that from Doom, where it's like, once it's out, it goes. Like it goes until like, it collides with something, like say like in some sort of wall, like wall or the enemy itself, like auger or something like that. But yeah, that's basically what I think needs to be done. And like I said, those are kind of like my little hot takes for what Night Rain truly needs for this game to make it, to make it better. Now, am I saying that the game is bad? No, but there are some things that, you know, that could make it better. Like I said, from Everdark bosses needing a nerf that they truly honestly need, to Knights Cavalry not being able to get on horses again after they've been knocked off. Stormruler having a bit more massive buff, and all other stuff. But that's gonna do it for this little video and everything. And I hope you guys have enjoyed, my little 2 cents. I'm curious to see if anyone's gonna, leave their thoughts in the comments about what I said, or if they have their own little thing to chime in with. But until I see y'all in the next video or live stream, as always, take care everybody, and I hope you all have a good week or weekend.